QR code. Oh, good timing, Emma. Well done. We've got a QR code. So if you don't want to do like old school analog, just do your phone on the QR code and it'll take you to the form. So basically, this is an easy way for us to make a connection with you, get some contact details so we can introduce you to different things in the church, put you on a mailing list. We won't spam you, but it's just a great way of us connecting with you. On the other side of the card is prayer. So this is a reminder that, we're not independent, we're not autonomous. God has given us prayer as this amazing gift to have a conversation with him. But sometimes we need help with it. And so there might be something going on in your life, someone in your life you want to lift up. Write that prayer request down on the card, pop it in one of the buckets around the room. And every single prayer request will be prayed for by our team. And we'd love to hear answers to prayer as well, so we can celebrate those, glorify God, and encourage ourselves as we pray. Let me talk about offering. So it's our privilege to be able to offer financially, to worship God with everything that we have, including our money. And so there's different ways you can give. If you click on the QR code or chat to me or chat to Tim, we'll explain how to do that and also where the money goes, how we use that. For the life of the church, for the glory of God, for the kingdom, so inside the church and outside the church, all that money is put to good use. Now, do you know that there is a brand new opportunity to pray? Tuesday mornings, 6:30 till 7. Yes, we had 100 people who attended last Tuesday morning. The Zoom link almost couldn't no, we didn't have 100 people, but we could have 100 people. So, it's the normal prayer link in the email. Why not spend 30 minutes of your time on a Tuesday morning praying for whatever God puts on your heart, but particularly praying for more of the Holy Spirit and more of God in our lives. We've also got an opportunity coming up for coffee and cookies. And so around every couple of months or so, we host a coffee and cookie session for new or new-ish people in the church. It's a great way for people to get to know some of the leadership team in an informal setting in one of our homes, finding out about the history of the church, what's going on, and we can tell you more about the life of the church and ministries or areas that perhaps you'd like to know more of or be part of, or something that perhaps you'd like to start. You can see there's an opportunity or a need, or God's put something on your heart. So the next date for our coffee and cookie session is the 2nd of March. If you'd like to come, chat to me or chat to Tim, or put it on the welcome card as you put it in one of the buckets, and we'd love to have you along to one of those. Now, I think we should give Naomi an extra special welcome with all of the interruption with power and all those kind of things. So let's give our warmest, best, loudest welcome to Naomi as she comes to preach to us.
For a minute there, I thought I was going to have to pretend I was doing a school assembly again and just shout really loud. So I might have to. We will see. Anyway, we are continuing today with one of our minor prophets. And this week and next week, Tim and I are going to be looking at Hosea. Do you remember when you asked me what kind of name Hosea was and I said prophetic? She began brushing her hair again slowly, but Michael knew she was listening to him this time. Hosea was a prophet. God told him to marry a prostitute. She glanced at him with a mocking smile. Did God tell you to marry me? Yes, he did. She was scornful. He talks to you personally. He talks to everyone personally. Most people just don't bother to listen. It was better to humor him. Sorry, I interrupted. You were telling me a story. What happened next? Did this prophet marry the prostitute? Yes. He figured God must have a reason, a good reason, the same as he probably did. Did this Hosea beat the sin out of her? I suppose she crawled to him on her face and kissed his feet for saving her soul. No, she went back to prostitution. Her stomach dropped. She looked up at him and searched his face. He just looked back at her, solemn, self-contained, enigmatic. Well, so God isn't all-powerful after all, is he? She said quietly. Well, God told him to go and get her again. She frowned slightly. Did he? Yes. Just because God told him to. No man would do that. Yes, and because he loved her. She got up and went to look out the window at the darkening sky. Love? No, I don't think that was his reason. It was his pride. The old prophet just didn't want to admit he couldn't hold on to her all by himself. Pride drives a man away, Mara. It drove me away from you that last night in paradise. He should have listened to the Lord and gone back. He should have dragged her out of there no matter how much she kicked and screamed. Angel looked back over her shoulder at him. So she stayed with the prophet after that? No, she left him again. He had to buy her out of slavery a second time. She didn't like his story very much. And then she stayed? No, she kept leaving. She even had children by other men. Her chest felt heavy, defensive. She mocked him, and he finally stoned her to death, she said wryly, sarcasm dripping. Isn't that right? He finally sent her to where she belonged. He didn't answer, and she turned her back on him again. What's your point, mister? Just say it. Someday, you're going to have to make a choice. Francine Rivers' book, Redeeming Love, has sold over 3 million copies. It tells the story of Michael Hosea, a faithful, godly man who is told to marry Angel by God, and Angel is the highest priced prostitute in paradise. She was sold into prostitution as a child. It's a story that is as brutal as it is beautiful, and it's so seemingly unbelievable that something like this could happen. It seems a very fitting work of fiction and, more recently, a film. But of course, this isn't just fiction, because if you look closely and you read beyond the harsh descriptions of life in 1800s California, you find the story of the life of the prophet Hosea, a man whose name means salvation, who is called by God to marry Gomer, described in different translations of the Bible as a prostitute, a promiscuous woman, a woman of whoredom, an adulteress. And as you can see, whatever translations use, the description isn't flattering. But this is more than just the story of a faithful husband commanded to remain faithful to an unfaithful wife. Hosea's prophetic message tells of a faithful God and his unfaithful people. And his own story serves to illustrate the faithfulness of God, even when the people of Israel seem utterly unlovable and unloving towards him. Now, before we go on, I just want to give a very quick health warning. Some of the themes today might make for uncomfortable listening, and we've already heard words that I don't use on a daily basis and are not often used in church. But this is a book that's meant to challenge, so I ask that you stick with me and with any of the uncomfortable feelings, because this is the story of a God who never strays, regardless of how unfaithful we are. Although there's judgment, it's followed by the promise of grace from the one who says, I will betroth you to me forever, tying us to him with righteousness, justice, steadfast love, and compassion. So we're going to spend some time today looking at Hosea 1-3, which primarily focuses on Hosea's own story. And I'm not going to read all 3 chapters now, I'm sure you'll be pleased to know, but I do encourage you to look at them in your own time. And I really encourage you to look at different translations. I've tried to show which translation I've used for the different verses, because each has a very different way of explaining and unpacking the verses, and I think it's really helpful. And just because I love a little bit of background context, Hosea was written at a time when there was turmoil amongst the people of God. The promised land is divided, and the 12 tribes of Israel have split into 2 groups. And you've got one which has 2 of the groups, which is the tribe of Judah, and they want to continue to follow the line of David. They believe that this is where God's promise is supposed to go. And the other, which becomes the kingdom of Israel, and that's 10 of the original 12 tribes, has rejected David's line. And as we see, there's an intentional rejection of God that goes along with that. And it's to this kingdom that Hosea is called to prophesy. Now, Hosea's own story seems to have 3 defining moments. The first one is marry a prostitute. The second one is have children with this woman, but just to let you know, she might have some children with other men that aren't your children. And number 3 is buy your wife back from her lover. Now, I think that any one of these things is quite a lot for someone to deal with, but all 3, I really feel for Hosea, because this is an interesting call of God, and that's what we're going to start unpacking today. So this is what God says to Hosea. When the Lord first began speaking to Israel through Hosea, he said to him, "Go and marry a prostitute, so that some of her children will be born to you from other men. So Hosea married Gomer, the daughter of Diblaim. Now, Hosea is one of our earlier prophets, but we've already had Samuel, and if you remember his call, it came much along the lines of, "Speak, Lord, for your servant is listening." And Isaiah got, "Whom shall I send and who will go for me? Here I am, send me." And Hosea gets, "Oh, marry a prostitute and have children of prostitution." So, I'm guessing that when he was thinking about being a prophet, this is not what he had in mind when he thought about his call. And I'm sure it's also not what he thought he would be asked to do when he was thinking about his future wife. Because I'm guessing it's not what any of us have in mind when we're thinking about our future spouse. Our marriage vows specifically talk about faithfulness to one person and one person only. No sharing is allowed. This call is therefore intentionally disturbing. Now, we don't know whether Gomer, Hosea's wife, is a working prostitute, or as other translations put it, she's a promiscuous woman or an adulteress. But what's pretty clear is it's not that she's someone who just gets a little bit flirty when she's had too much wine. This is someone who intentionally sets out to break her marriage vows and go against her husband. So why is Hosea called to do this? Well, it's because Hosea's story acts as a portrayal of what's happening between God and Israel. The kingdom of Israel has left the line of David and moved away from God. The people have, in essence, been unfaithful to the one who has shown faithfulness to them through the generations. Hosea acts as a picture of God, which means, therefore, that Gomer must act as a picture of Israel. And the really tricky part is realizing that Gomer also acts as a picture of us. And this is really hard, because it doesn't matter what story we read or film we watch, we're unlikely to want to identify with the villain. It's much nicer and much easier to see the similarities between ourselves and the hero. And isn't that the case here? Because Hosea in the Bible, or Michael Hosea in Redeeming Love, is a walking green flag. He's faithful, he's honourable, he's godly, and he's sacrificial in the way that he loves.